Afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Fee Committee for the FY26 budget process. And I would like to introduce and turn the meeting over to relatively new, but not so new anymore, Deputy Finance Director Michael Tucker. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Karen. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the February 13th, 2025 Fee Committee meeting. Well, overall, there are 5 members of the Fee Committee, 3 counselors who are the voting members, and then the city manager and myself will be the non-voting members of the committee. I'll be replacing Andrew Pergel, my fellow Deputy Finance Director on the Fee Committee for this meeting and going forward. Just as an overall comment, the general fund fees raise approximately 2% of the overall budgeted general fund revenues. And also to note on our agenda, I've only included departments who have proposed changes for the fiscal year 26 fee schedule. If there are any questions for departments that have no proposed changes, we can take them after we go through the departments listed on the agenda. We will now start with the first item on the agenda, which is the acceptance of the meeting minutes from the 10/2/24 meeting. Are there any comments or discussions regarding these minutes?
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And the first item that we have on the agenda is any proposed changes or suggested fee changes for the planning department. If we could have the planning department come forth.
We have Planning Manager Peter Stith here, and I think he starts on page 13.
Good afternoon.
Welcome.
I think there are only 3 changes to the planning department fees. Page 13, the recently adopted administrative approval for accessory dwelling units. We did not have a fee for that when that was adopted, so we're proposing a $150 fee for that process. I'll just continue if there's no comments or anything. The other fee is related to Board of Adjustment applications. So right now we have an accessory structure application, which could be anything from a small shed to a large garage. So we're splitting it out into size. So anything 500 square feet or under would maintain the current fee of $100, and then over $500, 500 square feet for an accessory structure would be $150.
So we go to page 15.
Yep. Page 15 is just a flat abutter notification fee for applications, and that would just be $10 as proposed.
What have we done have we charged in the past?
We have not.
Okay.
We just charge for the postage. Yep,
So this will be $10 plus postage.
correct.
I think that's it for planning, correct?
That's all.
A butter notification per a butter or just per?
Per application, so an applicant would pay that much.
Yeah.
But any questions for Peter?
Just asked.
Move we accept the planning?
Are we doing this one by one, or are we voting once?
February of last year, you did it
By group?
Department by
by
department?
Yep.
I move to approve planning fees.
Second. All in
Favor?
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nope, none of us are against.
Okay, great. Thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have Public Works.
I think we're starting with page 31.
Correct.
And just before you start, Peter, if you could potentially cover Prescott Park as well, if you're comfortable with that.
I can, but Tim and Judy
Okay.
are most knowledgeable about those, so if there are questions, I will turn to them and ask them for their input, and Todd as well.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
So we are looking at some minor changes. The first one is on page 31, and it's the encumbering property other than the items that are on the street or sidewalks, and we're bringing it up from $400 to $500. The justification is that there's value to the property being encumbered, and it's less than the 5 cents, which is for those identified travelways and loading zones and the like, which if you do the calculation, is roughly $100 cheaper. So it just seemed like a reasonable thing to adjust, given the demands that are on public spaces, and there's a value that people are gaining from using those spaces. So, and then, and $2.50 for any additional hundreds.
Time period.
Time period, the 30 days. Blasting permits have taken up a lot of effort lately, and so this just reflects the additional time, staff time associated with managing those permits. Excavation permits are really just adjustments given the costs associated with time associated with crew and managing the excavation permits. And then the expedited permit is really something that people are asking us to drop everything we're doing and turn and address their concerns, and there's a cost associated with that. So it reflects in a significant increase. Crack sealing fee is associated with if a trench is not properly finished off at the end of work. A private contractor does an excavation fee. They pave it and they don't do a good job and they don't seal the crack where the asphalts meet. This gives us the ability to charge them to do that, and the fee is consistent with the amount that
The material?
the deposit. So it's a combination of materials, staff time, and equipment associated with that. Recycling bins on page 33, there's a cost associated with them that has gone up, so this just reflects the cost to the city. That is it.
We're going to jump to page 60 for Prescott Park, and maybe, or while you're sitting here, Peter, would that be appropriate?
Sure.
Okay.
Prescott Park is mostly dock fees, and Tim and Judy are most knowledgeable about those. The major change this year is that we went from having a portion of the slips that are raffled off or bid off all be residential now. We had a portion of them in the past that were non-resident, but there's a high enough demand to warrant just keeping it for the residents. You know, why we felt it was appropriate to not subsidize non-residents. So the cost did go up a little bit, $10 for the April to November, and the non-resident really is just there for next year if we do it. It
What
just
happens?
keeps track. So if
It
you have any
was-
questions associated with dock
It was
fees,
a 7% increase, just so that you know, for both.
And exactly how many slips do we have to how many people that applied to get in?
We had 16 seasonal slips auctioned off this year, up 4 from the previous year, so 12 to 16 this year. We had 29 resident applicants and 1 non-resident applicant. So, and it was, the residents were told in advance that the fees might go up halfway through. No one even batted an eye. They're all okay with it.
They can afford a boat, they can afford it. Okay.
so that is about it for Prescott Park
And DPW.
and DPW. Yep.
Next on the agenda.
Wait.
So go ahead. Oh, yes, thank you.
I'd move we accept the DPW fees
And Prescott Park?
and Prescott Park fees as stated.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. No one's opposed.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have the Recreation Department, represented by Todd Henley. And we have the first changes noted on page 35.
Welcome.
Good afternoon. Excuse me. So at both Spinnaker Point and the indoor pool, we charge either an annual membership fee, which is good for the entire 12 months of the year, or you can purchase a recurring monthly membership that charges a member's credit card each month. However, every time we charge a credit card, we are hit with a processing fee. And if any issues come up with the card, for example, the card is expired or there are insufficient funds, etc., we have to use our staff time to track down and resolve those issues. So instead of the monthly fee being the annual amount divided by 12, we have asked to slightly increase the price per month to cover our fees and admin time. So, for example, Spinnaker Resident Adult is $220 if you purchase the full year, or it's $20 a month, or $240 a year, which is about $6 in fees, and then anything else that covers for admin time and processing. Members do like the recurring fee because we charge them automatically and they can cancel at any time, so it is a benefit for them. It looks like there's a whole lot of changes of fees on there, but it's really all just reflecting the increase in per month fees for each of the levels of membership on there. The next one I'm going to talk about is the Spinnaker Point new member fee. The indoor pool has had a new member processing fee since FY19 to cover costs for the initial purchase of a membership, like key tags, the upkeep of our scanning machines, and admin, paperwork, and filing. I'm looking to institute that at Spinnaker Point to keep things the same for memberships at both facilities. And finally, on page 38, you'll see the inclusion of the kayak rack rental fees that were not previously listed in the fee schedule. It is $200 a season for residents, $240 a season for non-residents. Our season is from May 24th to September 30th, which is a total of 4 months. We have 19 different slips, and in 2024, it was all Portsmouth residents that were had the racks.
I still think we should go higher on non-residents. I just say that. I think
With the kayaks?
yeah, I mean, $5 more, it's not a big
not.
difference, right? So I just feel like that should be slightly higher.
I have a question on the Spinnaker and the indoor pool. As a user of both who buys the annual and gets the discount, is there any way to have an auto renew?
For the annual fee, I'm actually going to look at Tim for that.
Is there a way to do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can set it that way.
Just an
We
option
couldn't
on the
in past,
phone?
but we certainly have now.
Yeah, we just changed over to a new registration system and scheduling system, which has a lot more capabilities for us. So I'm happy to look into something like that.
Right, because it's always dodgy, you don't know when your annual renewal's coming up.
Yes.
Sometimes they miss you at the
Right, an opt-in auto would be
opt-in
helpful.
auto renew would be great.
Yeah, and in the new system, previously.
Tim, can I ask you to come to the microphone?
Oh,
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Thanks.
In the old system that we had, we based our membership on a calendar year, so it was January to December 31st, so you renewed January 1st. The way it works now, you purchase a membership on the date 1 year from there. So yes, we can set it for auto renew. And then we will be offering it that you can purchase it online, which we couldn't do in the past. So it saves a lot of time for people that, wondering when you'll get a notification and an email that, hey, your membership's expiring on, whatever date that you purchased it in.
I think you'd capture some revenue, because I think a lot of people, those first couple of weeks of January, keep coming in and haven't brought a checkbook with them.
100% correct. Yeah.
Yeah, we're about 2 weeks away from being able to offer all of our memberships for the indoor pool and Spinnaker Point to be completely online now. So,
Great.
That's a great suggestion. Thank you.
Counselors? Move to approve the rec fees.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Todd.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have the Health Department.
Sure.
Welcome, Kim.
So,
What page are we on?
Kim McNamara, Health Department.
Page?
41.
Oh, I'm
Thank
sorry. I just brought my cheat sheets. Exhibit A.
We don't know what page to scroll
got
to.
you.
My apologies.
It's page 41.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. So we have 3 simple proposed changes. One is to add hospitals and hotels to our supermarkets category, which is category F, at a price of $650 for an annual permit. Currently, they are licensed by seat. However, if you have a hospital cafeteria that only has 30 seats, and yet they're serving an entire hospital full of patients, it's a much higher volume, which is a much higher risk, particularly hospitalized
Let me
patients.
pause you there. What we're doing is, it's on page 40, and it used to just be for supermarkets, but we added hospitals and
Hospitals and
hotels.
hotels. Yeah,
It's
'cause
not
but
gr-
it's the same price.
But it's not grayed out because the fee didn't change, but Kim is explaining she added 2 users to that
Categories.
category.
Okay.
So for those 2 users, it will increase somewhat. And the other change that I'm proposing is a $50 plan review fee. We have not charged in the past for plan review, but we used to get a lot of simple sketches submitted on paper or napkins or something like that. Now we have architectural plans that we actually have to review because that gets required by other departments. So a $50 plan review fee is being proposed to add. And that is all I have.
The Winters Farmer Markets.
Well, they are at $140, which is consistent with the other farmers markets in the summertime.
Right, this wasn't a needed category until we were requested to permit one.
Yeah, right.
Move to approve the Health Department fees.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Kim.
All right, next up on the agenda, we have parking and transportation, which will be gone over by Ben Fletcher. The changes for parking and transportation start on page 43.
Welcome, Ben Fletcher and Mike Cassad from Parking.
Good afternoon. First change is at the bottom of page 43. We used to have 2 different rates for renting a space. So if you were moving or needed to put a dumpster down or something like that, the outside of town areas were at 35 and the downtown areas were at 50. So this is basically just reinstating that because we do get a number of requests annually, especially in the West End.
So to that effect, we would propose renaming high occupancy space to downtown and low occupancy space to citywide, non-downtown. And if I can back up to the top of page 43, the note is somewhat outdated because we don't use Easy Park anymore, so the new wording would be when using Park Mobile app at a metered parking space, residents, spelled wrong, TS, receive a 75-cent discount. So we will clean that up in the final version. Thanks.
Okay, so the second change, no emergency parking ban at High Hanover, unchanged at $10 per event.
This is page 44.
43.
Still 43.
Sorry, 43.
The proposed change is to move the Foundry Garage from 5 to match Hanover at 10.
And Ben, if I could ask about that. I know one driver of having the less expensive place to park being the Foundry Garage was to drive people to the Foundry Garage. So why are they both the same now?
Because we're seeing the opposite take effect at this point. The garage is routinely at 85 and beyond percent-wise, and particularly during snow events, that garage fills entirely and Hanover is left with space. Yeah, so the dynamic is changing.
It's kind of a double-edged sword because we don't necessarily want to increase the rates for the residents for something like that, but on the other hand, we have a 600-space garage and 120 or something are on the roof, which we lose a bunch of those when we're pushing snow into them. And at the other hand, we have to save 400 spaces for pass holders.
So it's just become a demand dynamic issue.
So do we actually, I guess I'm all for making both parking garages cost the same, but doubling this one after we just increased it last year, would it be more appropriate to lower Hanover a little bit and raise that one a little bit and make them equal that way?
Equal at $7.50?
I don't know. I'm just, whether it's equal there or you go $7, $8, I just feel like if the point is to make them equal, I think doubling at Foundry is going to create a bit of an uproar from residents especially. So that would be my concern. So I would love to find a way to make them equal, but not double Foundry all at once.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I can understand that completely.
I know, I will hear it from my husband who parks his truck at the Foundry Garage in snowstorms, so I just would really like to find a way that we could, if it's not a need for more money by doing this, but it's a need to even them out, can we find a way to even them out in another way?
It's a small amount of money. I mean,
Would you want to make a recommendation to change one or both of these to something different?
My fellow councilors, in the mood for. I don't have to do all the talking.
I would encourage you to do whole dollars, though.
Yeah, change is problematic.
So since we went up $3, why don't we go to 8 and 8?
Second that.
Yeah.
Sorry. steamroll you on that one, but I was just like,
Not at all.
I'm going to hear it from my whole neighborhood,
We're here to
because we live
discuss.
right outside the Foundry Garage.
I think it's hard to double a cost when
Right.
there's no additional work involved. You know?
Right.
It's just a demand calculation, and I understand the demand calculation.
Yeah, the dynamics
Right.
definitely changed.
Right. If they're not going to save any money, those people that are coming from farther away to park in that cheaper garage are now going to stay, so hopefully they'll keep it.
Okay.
They'll think they're getting a discount.
So
We vote on that as amended?
You need to vote on that separately, or
I'm recording that for just those
those two?
two,
So we'll take a vote for that.
Okay. To 8 and 8,
8 and 8.
8 and 8.
I'll move that we do that.
Second?
I've got
Oh.
Councilor Moreau, seconded by Councilor Denton.
Oh, good.
Okay,
that-
so we just need to vote.
So
All
go
in
ahead.
favor?
All in favor? Ah, yes.
Then we'll
All in
include that in the whole parking and transportation, assuming there's no other changes.
Thank you.
Now we're on to the top of page 44.
Yes, ma'am. Last visited in FY21, the monthly rate at the High Hanover Garage moving from $275 to $300.
That's for non-residents.
Correct.
All for increasing non-resident fees.
Yeah.
Okay, just below that, last visited in FY08, the late pass fee. This is basically just to cover administrative costs. When they don't pay their monthly parking on time, the card has to be shut off, and then it has to be, brought back online. There's a process to that. This basically just reflects increased labor costs over the years, and it's equivalent for the other garage as well. That same change. So moving on. Monthly passes at Foundry, non-resident going from 125 to 200. Same reason. It's been since the Foundry Garage opened, since that's been visited. And the late pass fee identical to Hanover. Top of page 45, electric vehicle charging rates. This is last visited when the City Hall machine went in FY20. Presently, each of the first 4 hours is $1.25, and then it shifts to $3 after that. With the reasoning being to turn the space, just like we do with parking, and we have about an average of 4 hours of turn on those spaces, and that's how long it takes for a level 2 Nissan Leaf to charge. So, this basically just reflects increased maintenance costs and increased electricity costs. Excuse me. It won't cover, but it'll help.
I just want to make a comment. It would be impractical to charge a different amount per charger, although that would probably be more fair because each charger puts out a different amount of juice. So for some at City Hall, you're paying more per the watts than you would be, let's say, at the new chargers because it's less electricity. But again, that's not, I don't think it's practical to list each charger individually, and we'd have to figure out what the voltage was.
They should be programmed the same.
They should be pretty close.
I think the amount of electricity going into each of them is different. Ideally, they should be.
Or 3, yeah. So they're all set at level 2.
Correct.
To
They're all
dis-
set
to
levels.
dispense the
I'm simply
charge
saying,
at a certain rate.
The amount of electricity available in the lower lot versus the amount of electricity available at Foundry Place is different, so it takes more time to charge at one than the other, although they're both level 2.
Interesting.
And there is another issue because we can't resell electricity, so
Exactly.
the way we have to
Yeah,
word that.
the way
is-
the ordinance, which I wrote like 7 years ago, is making clear we're not selling electricity, we're charging
the use of
for
the
the
space.
use of the actual.
Device, yeah.
Exactly. Either way, it would not be practical. I just wanted to point that out.
So they're paying for the use of the device. They pay their own electricity, though. Is that what I just heard? When you go to charge your car, one of our public ones, you pay to park there to the city, but then they pay for, how do they pay for the electricity? Or-
They use an app called ChargePoint.
Okay.
And it's a separate product, so it is charged separately.
Just curious. People ask me, and I had no idea, so.
In the paid parking areas, you do still pay for parking.
Right.
At the one in City Hall, you can charge there for just the cost of the electricity.
And for the record, you can use your phone or use a tap credit card as well if you don't want to download the app.
Oh, interesting.
Good to know somebody asked me.
So Moving on to Summit's administration fee, last visited in FY16. This is another one for, this is just administration costs associated with boot and tow. And then below that, towing, it was originally called a mobilization administrative charge or administrative fee. The new ordinance doesn't use that word, so we've decided to change that to penalty. I should have seen that beforehand, but I did not. So, and those both moving to 300.
So why the doubling?
So, Jane,
Been 10 years?
10 years.
is that an appropriate adjustment at this point?
That's, yeah, we discussed right before you got here, sir.
I have no comment on the amount of the fee. I mean, that's nothing that I would comment on, but I would comment that the reference to the chapter, because we actually amended this section of boot and tow this year, so I'd make a correction to that reference. It would be Article 10, Section 1004, F as in Frank 5, and that talks about fees and penalties associated with the boot and tow. So that's new. As far as, doubling a fee, that's the will of this committee. If this committee feels that that is a reasonable increase, then you will approve it. If you do not, then you will advise parking that it is not appropriate.
I'm good with it.
Well, I just think
Thanks, Jane.
this is often a population that has trouble paying, and that's how they end up behind. And I think it's a big penalty, and I would propose going to 250 as opposed to 300. But I may not
Ben,
get
could you
support.
describe how we get to the point where they incur these penalties?
Well, if you have a balance of $250, or you've had 10 or more citations in a single year, so
At that point, shouldn't you have a car?
well, I mean, it's there's two ways to look at it. They may struggle to pay, but it's also a lot less expensive to pay for a few hours worth of parking than it is to get a $35 citation, and choices are being made in that regard by these individuals. And this reflects letters that have to go out on behalf of the city. This reflects time spent researching and pulling plate numbers and calling the DMV, and there's a lot to it.
Well, I would propose amending to 250. See if I get a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm against.
Okay.
So that is the last item on that page, correct? The last one that's in gray. Got it. Thank you. I think that's it. for
You don't
parking.
need us to vote on the update, the citation of what part of the ordinance, right?
Nope. But do we need a vote for all of parking?
If that's the end of parking trends, then
It is.
Yeah, so,
Motion to approve the parking?
second? All in favor?
Aye.
We'll make these adjustments today.
Thank you. Next up on the agenda, we have water and sewer.
Come on up, yo.
Yeah, why don't you both come on
You
up?
have to come up.
We have Eric Fiedler and Al Pratt joining us.
Any changes will start on page 47.
You want me to talk? Yep. All right. All right, we have a few changes to our rate schedule in terms of permitting for industrial pretreatment. The one change for the regulatory compliance sampling, so we have a Class 6 permit, so we're doing an industrial pretreatment program as required by the EPA. Class 6 is, there are 6 classes of industrial dischargers, so this reflects kind of consistency with our industrial pretreatment plan. And this is really an application fee. It's just, this is compliance sampling, so as part of our regulatory compliance, we have to sample for some emerging contaminants, and then annual sampling as part of our new NPDES permit for our wastewater plant. So this is just to capture the cost. It doesn't capture all of them, but it's a start, because we have to sample each individual discharger on top of all of our other regulatory stuff that's been added on in the past year as well. So
How many of those do we have in the city?
industrial dischargers. So there's a long list of them, and they get bucketed into different classifications. So ones that are risks to basically the treatment capacity itself, so that could be metal finishers and stuff. So there's different classes. So we have a lot of industries, but not all of them require the same type of sampling. So, and it kind of fluctuates. They kind of move in and out of different categories based on their production and things like that. So really, we only regulate 20 to 25, but you think of like a dentist, for instance, they do amalgam. We just need a certification that their separator is good, and that's a one-shot deal. But we do need to track them. So there's some of those where it's we have to sample, we have to track, because we're required to regulatory-wise, but they're all a little different. So it's a bit of a challenge. There's a lot of moving pieces, and they pop in and out of, in the area, too.
And the sampling fees are
That's a new one, though.
yeah, but they are really, very significant costs associated, and you'll hear this more when we talk about our budget. It's hitting water and sewer both pretty hard in terms of PFAS in particular.
Yeah. A single sample is about $500.
Yeah. For one sample.
One sample.
Wow.
So, and you have to do them, some of them are quarterly, some of them are more, some are not. But this is simply just the baseline minimum. And then we'll kind of see as it evolves too, because these tests are becoming more common, so we're going to see if that changes and what additional regulatory requirements kind of emerge out of that. So we'll have to, annually keep on updating. Another one, this is part of our fats, oil, and grease permitting process. I think it's been pretty reasonable. I mean, we still have had some issues in our collection system, but this is, we're trying to require the businesses to provide documentation that they've done their cleanings. So this is just another one to say, like, when you're doing your re-permitting, have you done your inspections? If not, there's a bunch of back and forth. We have our WB goes out there and we'll witness a cleaning. We do a bunch of other things.
William Brennan.
Oh, sorry. William Brennan.
What's his
He's
name again?
Or just
William Brennan.
I've known him for a decade. I did not know.
And a singer.
What?
Yeah.
Karaoke guy.
Yeah, that's where I know him from.
Yeah. And we're not trying to be punitive at all. A lot of it is just our time to get out there, double check that it's being done. Because, it's a little bit new, and some people are getting used to, like, yeah, this really helps, because if you don't collect it here, it accumulates somewhere else and causes problems for other people.
On Mall.
On Mall, for instance, yep. So, and those are what we're trying to avoid, so. And it's not punitive, it's just an additional cost to kind of administer that.
Next page, page 48.
Yeah. So
These are water fees, just a few of these changes. So the first one here is a water services application fee. Last time that was updated was 10 years ago. So we're just trying to recoup some of the costs for staff time to go through those applications. And not rubber stamp applications. We need to know where the tile is going in, what the condition the main is in. There's a lot of work that goes along with that. So we're trying to recoup the cost for
Are these all like new construction?
new services. Yep.
Yeah.
So they have to bring a drawing?
Yep.
Yeah.
They need to
That
show where
needs
they
to
want
be
service, and we need to go inspect where they're going to be going in and see if they can do it. And some of them are a lot more involved, where we need to see how they would impact our system. So, the next page, 48, fire flow testing. This is just to recoup some of the time. Some of these, again, they can be short tests, might be an hour time, but some of them could be half a day or more when our staff needs to go out and assist companies when they're doing their fire flow testing by running hydrants for them. Hydrants fees for municipalities. This is a fee that increases every year by $25, and this has been a recommendation from our 2014 rate survey that we had done, study we had done. Basically, we were very much undercharging for our hydrant rentals, so we're slowly increasing that cost to a more reasonable level, because this is basically trying to cover costs for really providing fire services for these towns.
And for perspective, our fire department pays a fee for the hydrants. So does the other people that use in Newington, Newcastle, Rye, where we provide
Greenland.
water and there's hydrants. The municipalities pay for those hydrants.
All right. The next one is on page 51, and this is just a rework of some of the equipment rates for our distribution crew, trying to get closer to what going rates are for equipment. This helps to cover maintenance costs and run the equipment.
And our staff did surveyed several of the local contractors, try to get their rates and all that. And this is still what the city would get, for instance, but if you tried to go them as an individual, you'd never, either they wouldn't rent it to you or it'd be way more expensive. So.
I'm really curious, when does somebody use these services? Like, could you give me one example?
Like a service line fails and they need somebody quick, and we can
So the city-
respond, and basically we charge them for that equipment.
I just have one follow-up question for that page regarding the one-ton dump. Do you know if that was supposed to be 65 per hour?
Oh, look at that.
No, I think we looked at.
Or is it
Oh,
supposed
yeah,
to
it went
be?
down to 35.
There's two classifications, so we added a big.
Okay.
I think it was a larger dump. That's the
There's a
10-wheel dump,
10-wheeler.
6-wheel dump, and the 1-ton. Because it was kind of a. Yeah.
Okay, so that is
so that
correct.
was
Okay, I saw it.
And you added the 75 and 90.
Got it. It looked like an anomaly, but I wanted to make sure it was correct.
the language.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
That is, oh,
Now, where are we?
You all set with water sewer? Any
That's
questions?
it for water?
Is it for water sewer?
Move to accept the water rates as published?
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So I think that's
Gonna try to get a little hot.
That's the whole formal agenda. I didn't know if Councilor Tabor, as a matter that came before the governance committee, you wanted to talk about sidewalk obstructions and/or outdoor dining.
Sure, and maybe Jane can help on this because she was there too.
And this would bring us to page 9 of the fee schedule, I think, right?
Yes.
Okay. The bottom 3 items.
So we clarified and simplified the outdoor dining fees last year, and our discussion wasn't so much about that. I think we felt we could stand pat there, but when we got to sidewalk obstructions, we got into a discussion of the fact that the Hearth asked for relief from their tables and chairs. We got it. Other downtown folks are still paying. For example, Ceres Street has tables out front. Cup of Joe, the assistant mayor, pointed out she pays hers. So the question was, how do we be consistent? And there's also the situation of Port Walk, which is not a city street, as I understand it. It has to do with the deed. They don't have to pay. So,
Because it's private property.
so the deputy city manager put together a table of the different types of sidewalk obstructions. We've got chairs on a public sidewalk, chairs in community space. This would be the McNabb situation. And tables, benches, planters on private property. No charge. But Jane, was it your thought that they still need a permit?
Excuse me. I think that comes in Port Walk when they do have those A-frame signs and things like that. They get the permit, but I don't think there's a fee because it's private.
Right.
And I think the other issue was in the alleyway, commercial alley, there are several restaurants, I think it's Elephantine and Cava, who have both the sidewalk obstruction fee that they pay that's coming up soon, but they also do the outdoor dining. And so last year the question was, I think, whether they should get some sort of credit or they kind of feel like, the times don't necessarily overlap exactly. So I think that was another of the reasons why this came to governance, because Sean became aware of it through his contacts with the
So we're talking
the businesses.
strictly about tables and chairs that private citizens own and maintain, but leave them open for the public to use. Right?
Yes,
We're
yes.
not. We're talking about those kinds of chairs, which on Port Walk Place, because that's private property, I'm kind of surprised that we don't consider Hearth Garden private property as well, because even though it's an easement for the public, which clearly the sidewalks in Port Walk Place must have the same legal standing as far as the public has a right to walk on those. So why would we not consider those two?
There's a difference between a right to pass and community space. The easements are very different. So Port Walk Place has the right to pass. That's a very unusual easement, and the whole conveyance of that property and why it's private was well before my time, but I know it was very complex. So I think that's different than community space, where we have easements rights for our community to pass, and on a lot of community space throughout the city. So there is a bit of a distinction.
And two other pieces to the discussion. One school of thought is it takes up city property, it is an obstruction, there should be a charge for that. The other school of thought, if I could presume to speak for Councilor Cook, these are put out for the general public to use. They enhance the downtown, and the fee should be nominal or not at all.
I agree with the latter train of thought. And it should be uniform. If the tables at Hearth, the ones that are for anyone to use regardless of buying the product, anything like that, whether it be tables in Commercial Alley, I didn't realize those were for anyone to use, but if anyone can use those, regardless if you're purchasing food from those shops, I think it should be the same, that they shouldn't have to pay for the obstruction.
And
But how do we convey to the public that some of those are open to the public, right? Because I think Hearth Garden, they know because it is community space. But when you're on an alley right outside the restaurant or something, how do we convey to the public that those are public tables and public spaces, even though the business owners provided them? I just think it would be important, if you're going to put apples to apples, that they be, I mean, I don't know how to do it. I'm just putting that out there. That
Maybe
I
a
think we
map?
need to.
Maybe a map could be posted.
Table tents.
I don't know, it could be in Market Square saying, these are the restaurants that provide tables for anyone to use, that are open for the public to use at any time, like the ones the city puts out, right? That equal to that,
or a press release saying
maybe.
in response.
If they're not open to the public, then they're going to be corded off some way.
Yes.
That's really, if we're distincting that way, I'm fine with the minimal, whatever the hit is, it's a minimal hit. You're doing the public a benefit. I know I have friends that go and use the tables at Hearth all the time, no matter where they get their food downtown, and they love it. So
You see people
it's a
have it
benefit to have the tables out in front of the church and wherever else we put them. So, I think that any fee we charge should be minimally covering the amount of time it takes staff to permit, or I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah, and it certainly makes it administratively simpler if there's no charge, because then we don't get into are you favoring the big developer who built the community space versus the small cafe owner?
Right.
And you're saying they're all treated the same. The assistant mayor said, well, what about the revenue we're losing? So we got a hold of those figures. The sidewalk obstruction license running $8,000 to $9,000 a year.
So really, all we're taking out of the sidewalk obstructions, though, are tables and chairs.
Right.
Everything else is still an obstruction that they should pay for, in my mind, because that's only benefiting the business. That's not benefiting the public.
The A-frame, certainly, that's their advertising.
Right, that's their advertising.
Right, and I understand from the data collection that they couldn't parse out the A-frame versus the sum total that you have here for the FY24
Yeah, and
figure.
that's fine,
So, the motion should just simply be clear, if this committee is going to take one, that it is for tables and chairs and not A-frame signs.
Want to put that in a motion?
So this is under sidewalk obstructions. I'd make a motion that we remove from the current sidewalk obstructions fee charges, tables and chairs only.
When available to the general public.
When made available to the general public. See, good add in. It's a tag team.
I'll second.
I'll take that as a second. There you go.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That wraps that.
Thank you, Jane. And the only other item on the agenda would be public comment, if there are members of the public who wish to comment.
I have one question.
Shoot.
In the field of outdoor dining, so we said we would revisit the $5 per square foot each year, and I'm curious as to how we feel the $5 was a benefit supposedly to everyone because they had to go and they had to comply to all of our rules. our new, design standards and all the things that we put together, is the $5 now enough, or is it too low? And should we adjust it?
I know that that was administered by the planning department, and I know our planning director is not here. I do have a comment from him when we discussed the offsetting of the sidewalk obstructions versus outdoor dining fees. And he was like, we've just got outdoor dining established. Don't mess with outdoor dining. He said it much more artfully than that, but less blunt than me. But so I do know that, at least from an administrative perspective from the planning department, that they felt that went well. As you can see, the revenues were less than FY23, but as far as raising the fees, I have not had that specific discussion with anybody.
I'm fine with that.
You're fine with leaving it?
Leaving it.
I just don't want to give it away. I mean, this is being used for private gain, so that's my.
Well, I would argue between the $5, the fee to planning, or the lost opportunity with giving up parking spaces, they're both costing, they both have a cost assigned. I don't think the cost that planning is charges covers all of the cost.
Right, so
But I
if
also think we only had 1 year under our belt. And I
So
think
maybe
Peter's
another year
thinking-
before we raise the fee?
Right, to see if things stabilize, if it came down a lot, and let's see if that levels out.
Okay, I'm all right then. 1 more year, but then we're going to talk about it again next year, right?
and
If I'm
they-
still here.
They are making money, but any restaurant owner, as Massimo told us, it's dicey whether you make money. You have to
Oh, I know, 'cause of
invest
that.
up front, and if you have a lot of rainy days, you're in the red.
But that's a risk a business owner takes when they do it, right? So I'm a business owner. I take risks when I make decisions too. So I just don't want the city to be losing out. That's my point. I don't think it should be costing us.
We shouldn't be subsidizing.
Right, exactly. That's my only point.
Not to further complicate the issue, but you have before you on February 18th the adjustment to the fees, and that provision says that fees can be adjusted obviously through budget or outside of the budget review. So if
Just change
it
that so we
comes,
can.
so if it comes up, you could not necessarily even reconvene the fee committee. You could simply bring it forward directly to the council.
So,
Just FYI, if this passes.
Thank you for bringing that.
yeah.
Yep.
One other fee-related item, payments in lieu.
Yes, so we're going to talk about tonight at Housing Committee at 5:30.
Right. If we had flipped these two meetings,
Right, exactly right, exactly right.
we would have had a payment in lieu, but tonight we have a proposed.
But we can bring that directly to City Council.
That's what I thought,
Exactly.
is
That-
that can go to city.
Perfect segue.
So Housing Committee can directly send that to City Council, and we don't have to reconvene.
Right, so we should vote tonight if
Yeah,
we have
I agree.
consensus to move that on.
Okay. All right, so are we making a motion on the, we already made a motion on that. You don't need any others, right?
Correct. I think we just need, we don't have any members of the public here or on Zoom, so I think we just need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Love it.